Hi everybody, and welcome to a special Kentucky Oaks edition of Out of the Gate. I'm Dan Illman. Thanks so much for watching. Here's what's coming up in this special edition of the program. DRF handicappers Mike Beer, Matt Bernier, and I will take a look at the Philly Classic, the Grade 1 Kentucky Oaks, the DRF Friday Race of the Day. We'll also look at 3 graded races on the undercard featuring last year's Kentucky Derby winner Always Dreaming in the Ali Sheba and last year's Kentucky Oaks winner Abel Tasman in the La Troyenne. We'll also cover the 8 Bells Stakes. Oaks Countdown has Joe Nevels and Nicole Russo from DRF Breeding breaking down the pedigrees of the major contenders in the Kentucky Oaks. Jonathan Kinchin's got a Friday Pick 5 play for you at Churchill Downs, plus Mike Welsh's Kentucky Derby Clocker Report from May the 2nd, and lots more. So let's break Out of the Gate. We begin Out of the Gate with our hot topic, and our hot topic on this special edition of Out of the Gate is, of course, the Kentucky Oaks. Let's throw up the field for this Philly Classic. It's 1 1/8 at Churchill Downs on Friday. $1 million is the purse. You've got the best 3-year-old fillies in the land. For expanded stakes previews of all the graded stakes races at Churchill Downs on Friday and Saturday, head on over to video.drf.com or the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel, and you can access free formulator past performances for the Kentucky Oaks on the Race of the Day event page at drf.com. Matt, from the West Coast comes a real good filly, Midnight Bisou.
Yeah, Midnight Bisou really hasn't done anything wrong in her entire career. She's 2 noses away from being unbeaten, and she comes into the Kentucky Oaks on the heels of a very impressive effort in the Santa Anita Oaks. We're going to take a look at that run right now. I love the fact that at this point she's already made the move that to me is most impressive. She blitzed this field on the far turn coming from off the pace, and she just powers down through the lane. The ears go up at the very end. I don't think we've gotten to the bottom of Midnight Bisou just yet, and if that's the case, and you think there's going to be an honest pace on Friday afternoon, boy, she's going to be very, very tough to deal with.
She has been so consistent, and I love the way her underrated trainer Bill Sparr's handled her, just gradually stretching her out in distance. Her confidence should be sky high right now. A lot of handicappers are going to believe that the Grade 1 Ashland Stakes is going to be the key Kentucky Oaks prep. Mike, you might think it's for a different reason, however.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens. And, you know, this race feels like it's going to set up pretty well for a horse with Midnight Bisou's running style. So I think she's going to be very tough to beat in this race. But I'm going to take a different closer in this race. I'm taking Eskimo Kisses. She made her most recent start in the Grade 1 Ashton. We'll show the replay of that race. She is only going to be able to get second in this race. She is not going to get within hailing distance of the heavy favorite Monomoy Girl, who was whacking out the pace in this race. I like the run this filly puts in from last, though. All through the stretch here, she has no real chance to catch this horse on the lead, but I love the way that she kept coming after her. She finishes well clear in second. I feel like the Kentucky Oaks is going to be a different kind of a race. It's going to be a much faster pace, much bigger field. It might set up a little bit better for Eskimo Kisses this time. I'm hoping she can pull off an upset here.
Yeah, I happen to agree 100%. I like Eskimo Kisses as well for all the reasons that Mike had laid out. And also, to me, one of the big sort of hangups with many of the fillies in this race and just in this race in general over the years, that extra 16th of a mile, I don't think is a given for some of these girls. Eskimo Kisses, she acts like she's only going to appreciate getting a longer, going out to 1 1/8. If it does come up wet, sounds like there's a little bit of rain in the forecast, she's a perfect 1-for-1 in blowout fashion down at Oaklawn. I'll go with Eskimo Kisses from off of it.
And we saw last year over a wet track a horse come from far out of it named Abel Tasman to win the Kentucky Oaks. You guys hoping for a similar situation with Eskimo Kisses. I think Monomoy Girl's simply the horse to beat, not just because of what we saw in the Ashland. She was supposed to win that race with the soft trip she got on the lead, but her prior performances, especially a couple coming from off the pace with eye-catching runs, that's the kind of trip that I'm expecting in Friday's Kentucky Oaks. I think that she can sit third off of the speeds, make a big run on the turn, and we'll see if she can see out the 1 1/8. Maybe not a ton of value on Monomoy Girl, but I think that she is the horse to beat. From a pedigree standpoint, we're going to find out a lot more about these Kentucky Oaks candidates because we've got DRF Breeding's Joe Nevels and Nicole Russo. They've been covering the Kentucky Oaks beat all week, all year long on DRF TV with the Oaks Countdown segments. And then we've got Peter Thomas Fornatel. A little bit different this week. No tourney talk. We're testing Pete's chops as a handicapper. He's got his picks for the Oaks.
Everyone, Nicole Russo and Joe Nevels coming to you for the final episode of the Oaks Countdown. Of course, the 144th running of the Philly Classic is set for Friday at Churchill Downs. Let's look at the field, and if you have been following along with us all winter and spring, you know these names. Monomoy Girl is favored from the outside post in the full field of 14. California Invader Midnight Bisou, the second choice, a few stalls inside of her. Let's take a look at the field and some pedigree notes in post position order, beginning on the rail with fantasy winner SASSY SIENNA. Daughter of midshipman, a very consistent filly who finally broke through there in the fantasy.
Yeah, midshipman, mostly known for throwing sprinters like Lady Shipman, but the dam has also thrown a grade 3 place runner at 1.125, so the connections are surely hoping that momentum from the bottom side keeps on rolling with SASSY SIENNA in the Oaks.
As we look at the next filly in the field, Coach Rocks from the first crop of Oxbow. Impressed me on the track last week at Churchill Downs, but she's really been gawking at the crowds on the backstretch as they've gotten a little bit larger the last several days. She's one that I'm going to keep an eye on in the walkover and on the post parade.
By far the best runner by her sire Oxbow, whose foals win at an average distance of nearly a mile. Very impressive for such a young sire still building his resume. Oxbow himself, of course, won the 2013 Preakness Stakes, so you know the ability is in there somewhere. The dam side, though, is mostly turfy and doesn't have a ton of standout black type, so overall class, a bit of a question with this one.
Classy Act, one of a couple in here out of Daughters of Distorted Humor, who has really emerged as the star broodmare sire, has championed Arrogate and multiple grade 1 winner Elate in that category.
Into Mischief, definitely capable of getting you a high-end runner, but his average progeny winning distance of 6.68 furlongs is pretty low for a classic field. Canadian champion Rainbows for Life and Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies winner Tempera are also in the extended family, though, so there's definitely some class here. She breaks the furthest inside of the likely pace horses, so they'll have to pass her to win this race.
Next in the gate is Fairgrounds Oaks winner Chocolate Martini. We've talked so much in recent years about the Unbridled line, especially as a source of classic type stamina. Of course, stallions like Unbridled Song, Empire Maker, Pioneer of the Nile coming from that line. Broken Vow is kind of the forgotten son of Unbridled. We haven't talked much about him, but Chocolate Martini by this very consistent stallion who did have a champion filly a couple years ago in Champagne Room.
Yes, Broken Vow's foals win at an average of about 7.25 furlongs, which is solid for a field like this. And it's actually a pretty turf-heavy family underneath, but it's got a grade 1 winner there in Ladies' Den, so you like to see that. Chocolate Martini sprung a big upset in the Fairgrounds Oaks after getting claimed for $25,000 just 2 starts earlier. And I'll be curious to see if she just needed a change in barns or if she ran the race of her life that day, and that's the best we're going to see out of her.
Wonder Gadot, very consistent all winter while kind of developing a hanging habit, lacking the explosiveness she showed as a juvenile. I thought she showed some renewed interest in her most recent outing, just missing the fantasy, looking to be the third Oaks winner for her sire Medaglia d'Oro, joining, of course, the Hall of Fame mare Rachel Alexandra and Plum Pretty a couple years after that.
Yeah, like you said, Rachel Alexandra, Plum Pretty, that's all you need to know there. Canada's champion 2-year-old filly at 2017, Wonder Gadot, still seeking that breakout effort in her 3-year-old campaign, but she seems to be going in the right direction headed into the Oaks, and one you definitely can't discount.
Kelly's Humor, one of a couple in here for sire Midnight Loot. She's also out of a Distorted Humor mare.
Yeah, Midnight Loot had a heck of an Oaks season, not only getting this one to the gate, but also Midnight Bisou. And he had Midnight Disguise, who made a lot of noise on the New York road in the Oaks. It's tough to see it happening with Kelly's Humor, though, who hasn't won since she was at Ellis Park last August, and she's only started once this year. So kind of tough to see this one happening.
Raya, kind of your mystery filly, won the UAE Oaks at 1 mile and 3/16. That's longer than she'll go on Friday. That's the Preakness distance. Finished a decent second in the UAE Derby, although well beaten by Mendelssohn, going the same distance against the boys. Bred to go long, her half-brother Curlin Road won the Cougar 2 at a marathon. Family of Breeders' Cup Classic winner Concern. She's changed barns, now with trainer Bob Baffert to target the Oaks. Joe, I know that the travel was a big question mark for you with this one.
Yeah, a couple things to keep an eye on with Rhea. First, she's running on Lasix for the first time in the Oaks. All of her previous starts have come in the UAE, where you can't run on this stuff, and I've always been a big fan of the L1 angle, especially when it comes to a horse with dirt potential coming over. Second, she ran second to Mendelssohn by multiple lengths, and she beat some nice horses in doing so, but she only managed to pull a 78 by her speed figure out of that effort. That's middle of the pack at best in this group, so there's a chance she just might not be good enough to hang with this group.
Ohio bred, Heaven Has My Nikki. Her sire, Majestic Warrior, also looking for another Oaks winner. Had the very good filly Princess of Silmar several years back. This one will be a long shot.
Yeah, she has a decent female family under her, but there's some class limitations under her dam Floral Park. Heaven Has My Nikki is a half to Doug's Buddy, who's a grade 3 place stakes winner at Northlands Park in Canada, as well as Floral Sky, who's a stakes winner at Thistledown. So you don't really have that high level experience under that first dam. Like a lot of the big Palucci horses, I think Heaven Has My Nikki would be a very good runner at the grade 2, grade 3 level, and she's definitely a standout among her fellow Ohio breds. But a grade 1 against the best of her generation is kind of a big ask with this form.
Take Charge Paula, another very consistent filly who I just don't think you can throw out based on how she's brought her game to every race. Another bye first crop sire in Take Charge Indy, who's got Noble Indy in the Kentucky Derby.
Yeah, honest as they come. And as you said, one of the spearheads of Take Charge Indy's big debut crop, one of the pleasant surprises of the spring racing season. She didn't get the job done in the Gulfstream Park Oaks last out, but I loved how she re-rallied after getting passed by Coach Rocks, and she made her have to fight for it. I don't know if she's good enough to win the thing here on Friday, but she won't make it easy for whoever does.
And then we come to Midnight Bisou, who we've mentioned a few times. We'll watch her here winning the Santa Anita Oaks in her most recent outing before we show you her pedigree on screen. Another Midnight Loot filly, shows her sire's late kick. Fascinating contrast in styles in this race, as Monomoy Girl doesn't necessarily need the lead, but she would prefer to be forwardly placed. With her drawing the outside post, it might force her hand a little bit, as she might need to use some of her natural speed to get position into the first turn and avoid being hung wide. The draw didn't matter so much for Midnight Bisou, who's going to be behind and come with a big late run, again, just as her big leggy sire did.
This is one of the serious threats in the field. We've already mentioned Midnight Loot's big Oaks Trail season, and Midnight Bisou is right at the head of that class, with their only defeats being a pair of noses behind the very good Dream Tree to start her career. Since then, nobody on the West Coast has even been in her league. She's, like you said, powerful closer, not afraid to go wide, and I think being far enough from the rail to keep her out of trouble is definitely going to work to her benefit in the Oaks.
My Miss Lily, the Gazelle winner, could be the second Oaks winner for perennial leading sire Tappet. Of course, had Oaks winner, Distaff winner, and champion Untappable a few years back.
Yeah, also had 2015 Oaks runner-up Shook Up, so a lot of very good Oaks class from Tappet. Plenty to like with this one. The thing that holds me back, though, on My Miss Lily is I'm not sure how good the New York platoon was this year. She was part of that blanket finish in the Gazelle Stakes where the other runners opted to look elsewhere, and I don't love to see that.
Patrona Margarita, a Texas bred. We have a very diverse field here. She's a half to Millionaire Texas Chrome.
Yeah, another one that we really can't glean a ton from in terms of pedigree. She's by Texas Sire Special Rate, and this is his first graded stakes winner and just one of 4 stakes winners overall from 10 crops of racing age. Fortunately, as you said, her dam Margarita Miss is good at getting the most out of Texas breds, led by, as you said, multiple grade 3 winner Texas Chrome. Patrona Margarita has been 4th or better in 2 starts this year after winning the grade 2 Pocahontas last year, but her closest margin of defeat is 7 1/4 furlongs this season. She'd need to show a ton more to even scratch the next level against this field.
We've thought pretty highly of Eskimo Kisses all along, has made all of her starts going a route of ground, ran some of the better buyers of this group earlier in the year. She's been rallying in her 2 stakes attempts, just missed in the Fairgrounds Oaks before running second to Monomoy Girl last out. Should get some pace to run at, and her grand dam, none other than Winning Colors, who won the Kentucky Derby 30 years ago this week, one of only 3 fillies to do so.
Oh yeah, easily the best pedigree of this year's Oaks field. Like you said, going back to her second dam, the Kentucky Derby winning Colors. Hall of Famer Chris Everett is further down on this page, along with Group 1 or Classic winners in England, Ireland, France, Japan, Germany, South Africa, and India. This is a big filly who's been brought along carefully and built up for this very purpose to run in the Kentucky Oaks. She's a heavy closer, and she should be coming up late right along with Midnight Bisou. It's going to be a lot of fun to see which of the 2 has the best kick going down the stretch.
And finally, on the outside, the morning line favorite, Monomoy Girl. You're going to watch the race that established her as the favorite as she won the Grade 1 Ashland for fun on the lead every step of the way last out. And then we'll take a closer look at her pedigree. This is going to be my selection for the Oaks. I have liked this filly all along. She ran some of the better buyers for a 2-year-old filly last year, doing so at Churchill Downs, where she owns a stakes win and was narrowly defeated in a 2-turn Grade 2 toward the end of the meet. Won both her starts this year. And the Rachel Alexandra broke poorly, showed she didn't need things all her own way to win as she rallied from off of it. In the Ashland, again, controlled the race every step of the way. She has developed in terms of professionalism throughout the spring. I think she's just thriving right now.
Yeah, you're not going to get too much debate from me on this one. This is my pick as well. She's improved with every start, both in terms of visual effort and from the buyer speed figures. My big concern for her heading into the Ashland Stakes last out was if she'd be able to kick the pattern of weaving into the stretch and finding trouble. And then she ran straight as an arrow, won by 5.5. You love to see it. I'm sure the connections would have rather seen her anywhere but the outside posts, but if anyone in this group has the talent to pull it off from the gate, it's Monomoy Girl.
Mm-hmm. Well, I apologize to our viewers for not being more creative for you, as we both like the chalk and the Kentucky Oaks. Eskimo Kisses, again, if you like Monomoy Girl, you have to like her, and she's definitely going to get her pace to run at. She is bred for this route of ground at Churchill Downs. Joe, any other sleepers that you think we should be looking at from a pedigree standpoint?
Well, I mean, Take Charge Paula is going to be tough as nails. You have to at least pay attention to her at the bottom of your exotics because she's just not going to give up without a fight. And I think that's enough to at least get her third or fourth. We'll see what happens. But, again, we're not going to have a ton of debate on this. I love Eskimo Kisses. If she gives off, if all the money goes toward Monomoy Girl and Midnight Bisou and Eskimo Kisses gives a decent price, I'll be all over that.
Remember, all the episodes of the Oaks Countdown are archived at video.drf.com. A more in-depth look at some of these fillies and their pedigrees as they've developed throughout the spring. Thanks for tuning in all season, and thanks for tuning in to DRF TV's Oaks and Derby Week programming. We'll see you under the Twin Spires.
Peter Thomas Fornatal back with you on Out of the Gate. We're going to do something a little bit different this week. There are tournaments on DRF tournaments, but with the Kentucky Oaks and Kentucky Derby at the front of everybody's mind, I wanted to get in on that conversation. And I wanted to take some of the knowledge that I gained working with Mike Maloney on his book, Betting with an Edge, and put it into practice here on Out of the Gate. I had a friend, professional player, Sean Borman, help me out. Sean, not one of the guys you hear on the DRF Players podcast. He's not a big fan of doing the media stuff, but he does like to hear his name in DRF programming. So this one's for you, Sean. We're going to start off by looking at my view of this year's Kentucky Oaks expressed in what Sean and Mike refer to as ability figures. These stem from the buyer speed figures you'll see in your racing form, but they are adjusted for various things, including my own view, and in this case, Sean's own view of the figures themselves, as well as other adjustments made for biases and pace and other setups. When you look at these adjusted ability figures for the Kentucky Oaks, you can see the two horses stand above the pack, and of course, they're the favorites, Monomoy Girl and Midnight Bisou. My idea is, since I'm not particularly clever in terms of my handicapping opinion in this year's Oaks, these are going to be the favorites. Let's try to get a little bit creative in the way we bet them. I've taken a budget of $100. You can scale it up or scale it down according to your own needs. And we're going to draw up some trifecta bets here where both Monomoy Girl and Midnight Bisou need to be there, along with some of the horses that I like the best to come with them in the trifecta. And we can take a look now. You'll see soon on your screen the main ticket that's been constructed. 30% of that $100 budget going to go into these pretty straightforward bets with the larger spread, including some of the higher rated horses from those ability figures and some horses that I think are the most likely to run in with those two favorites. And then with the rest of the budget, we're going to go ahead and press the horses who I think will offer the most value. And we can take a look at those press tickets next. And that's actually going to be close to half of the budget. You can see with getting some extra combinations there with not Classy Act, excuse me, with Coach Rocks, with Eskimo Kisses, with My Miss Lily, and with Rhea, who's a bit of an X factor for me. Not sure she's going to be good enough. She's not rated that high on that ability figure chart we looked at before, but because of the sort of X factor of her coming from overseas, first time for Bob Baffert, I'm going to go ahead and cycle her in as if she were one of the horses I had rated higher in these combinations. And then we're going to come back, and this is a concept that's all over Betting with an Edge, the kill bet. JK on the podcast often calls this the bets to crush their soul, where you go ahead and you have it a lot of extra times if everything comes right. And that's very simple. Eskimo Kisses getting elevated in these kill bets, have an opportunity here, if we're absolutely right, to have something like a $13 combination. If we're kind of right, we have a chance to have about a $3 trifecta, and then there'll be a $5 version if everything comes more or less correctly. That's sort of the idea. This is the kind of betting strategy stuff that's all over the Maloney book, Betting with an Edge. You can purchase it on the DRF site. If you're looking for a signed copy, you can reach out to me. You see my Twitter handle there on the screen, @LoomsBoldly. These are my ideas for this year's Kentucky Oaks. Hopefully we'll have an opportunity to be right and get paid. That's the plan anyway. I'll be back later in the week on Out of the Gate with the same idea of how I see the Kentucky Derby. You can tune in for that. You can find lots of content that I'm involved in at drf.com/you, including some special edition of the podcast. Check those out. I'm Peter Thomas Fornatow. Stay tuned for more Out of the Gate.
You asked, we listened. DRF Plus has more flexible subscription options. Use DRF Plus Basic for exclusive news and analysis, including our DRF Live real-time news feed. Or go deeper with DRF Pro and unlock buyers, closer looks, picks, and reports, including the DRF Daily Game Plan. DRF TV viewers get 50% off the plan of your choice. Use code DRFTV50 at checkout. Learn more about the DRF Plus subscription plans at drf.com/plus.
Welcome back to Out of the Gate. Let's take a look at the field for the Grade 1 La Troyenne Stakes on the Kentucky Oaks undercard Friday afternoon at Churchill Downs, featuring last year's Kentucky Oaks winner, the number 3 Abel Tasman. For expanded stakes previews of all the graded stakes races at Churchill Downs on Friday and Saturday, we cover every horse and every race in depth. Head on over to video.drf.com or the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel. Mike Beers Salty, the number 1, is cross-entered in the Humana Distaff sprinting on Saturday. If she runs here, though, I think you can say that her grinding style gives her a chance.
Yeah, she almost felt like a filly last year as a 3-year-old who would have really appreciated going shorter one-turn races. Based on her 2 starts so far this year, I'm not so sure that's the case. They cut her back a little bit in the Grade 1 Madison last time. We'll look at the stretch run of that race right now. This race is going to come down to a real blanket finish at the end. They're salty. She got outrun early in this race. You can see her there still lingering at the back of the pack, and she's just grinding away here on her wrong lead. She's not really making any impact on this race as they pass the 8th pole. She will finally change leads very late in the game here and then maybe make up a little ground at the end here. She was never winning, however. I'll be honest, I really wanted to like her a lot more heading into this La Troyenne. I don't know that I loved that last race that much, and it's not like she's some kind of great price on the morning line.
While she finished behind Abel Tasman 4 times last year, she didn't have the easiest of trips in either the Acorn or the Coaching Club American Oaks, 2 route races. But Matt, the story of the race, the 4-year-old debut of Bob Baffert's Abel Tasman. Now, sometimes we've seen these fillies not come back, and I haven't been exactly enamored by the workout report that DRF and Mike Welsh have been putting out. Are you worried about this layoff?
I think it's something that you've got to keep in the back of your mind. We haven't seen her since Breeders' Cup Friday. And speaking of that, let's go back and take a look at the Breeders' Cup distaff. She ran a good second in here. I have to admit, as a 3-year-old, I tried to find spots to beat her. I didn't really love any race that she had run. And then this race showed up. I know she was on the better part of the racetrack, and Forever Unbridled's got the jump on her. But I just thought this was a tremendous effort from this filly. She almost gets there, only loses by a half length. I kind of look at it. Look, the layoff is certainly a concern. But if she comes back at 85% of what she was when we last saw her out at Del Mar, I think she's simply better than the rest of these girls.
Mike, a horse that has recency on Abel Tasman and a horse that has been sharp for a breakout trainer in Keith Nations is Martini Glass. She's just been a revelation pretty much ever since she finished second to Songbird last year in the Delaware Handicap.
Yeah, that race sort of seemed like a little bit of a fluke. As it turns out, it was not a fluke. This filly's just gotten herself real good. I'm going to go with the hot horse in this race. We'll see what happens. Martini Glass has just been so good in her last few starts, especially. Most recently, we saw her in the Azeri at Oaklawn Park. I thought this was a pretty solid field. I liked the trip that she got in this race. But you know what, guys? She was also just much the best in this race. They took her clear at the top of the stretch. She's going to run right by the leaders. She's going to easily hold off Favorite Actress at the end of the day here. I like this performance from her. If Abel Tasman comes back off this layoff and just runs her best race, I guess she's just going to win. I'm going to try and beat her with the hot horse.
Martini Glass is the hot horse. Prior to this race, a really nice effort at Gulfstream Park, and although she lost the Houston Ladies Classic, you could argue she ran the best race that day, diving down to the deeper inside rail in a race where the last move was the best move. Tiger Moth made the move in that spot. I have to agree with Matt, though. I think that if Abel Tasman comes back at 85%, unfortunately there's no value. I just think she's the most likely winner of this race based on her sterling performances as a 3-year-old filly. Something to consider, though, she got ranked in a couple of her races towards the end of 2017. It'll be interesting to see how she copes with running fresh. Hopefully she doesn't start pulling hard in the early portion of the race, sapping her strength. But Abel Tasman, way the horse to beat in the Grade 1 La Troyenne. We're going to move from the older fillies and mares to the 3-year-olds, and from a route to the sprint, the 8 Bells Stakes is up next. Let's throw up the field for another quality graded stakes race on the Kentucky Oaks Friday undercard. It's the Grade 2 $200,000 8 Bells. It's 7 furlongs for 3-year-old fillies. For expanded stakes previews of all the graded stakes races at Churchill Downs on Friday and Saturday, visit video.drf.com or the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel. Matt, the #1 Amy's Challenge, finally getting an opportunity, I think, to do what she does best, and that is sprint. She's run well going 2 turns. She just doesn't seem to have that stamina.
I was going to say, I think the distance is just kind of the bugaboo for her. We're going to go back and take a look at the fantasy most recently down at Oaklawn, and you see her shot on the front end. She's been setting some legitimate fractions all by herself, but she just doesn't seem to have that finish, and I think this turn back is going to be very, very advantageous and work to her benefit. The concern I now have is, apparently it sounds like the connections are saying we may or may not go to the lead. If you've drawn the rail and you have the fastest horse, I don't think there's a heck of a lot to think about. I think you just got to go.
I'm not sure you can rate this horse. She has a lot of early speed, natural early speed. She did sit off Mia Mischief slightly in one race on the outside at Oaklawn, but from the rail you would think her hooves are forced. My gas station sushi usually tastes terrible, but for Richard Baltus, it's been fantastic. 2 for 2, including a really nice comeback win off a long layoff.
Yeah, she was really impressive. Only 1 start as a 2-year-old at Del Mar, but that was a really nice debut for this filly with an 85 buyer. That was it for her as a 2-year-old. I like that she came back off the layoff, not only to win a graded stakes race, but to overcome a little bit of adversity in that race. Didn't break that sharp from the gate, got held up behind horses early, was still in behind through the turn. We'll pick up the replay of the Grade 3 Beaumont right now, Keelan. Here she is finally coming clear at the top of the stretch. Once she comes clear, though, there's not that much doubt about this race. She will run right over the top of the leaders here at about mid-stretch, and she's clear at the end. I really like this return race for her. I like that she showed she can do it a different way. I think this filly's got a ton of upside.
Agree with you 100%. Love the fact that she came from off the pace, because that was the biggest question mark coming in. She was so brilliantly fast in her career debut at Del Mar, but she settled so comfortably despite that long layoff and finished full of run. I have a feeling Gas Station Sushi is going to be a good one. Matt, we talked a little bit about Mia Mischief when Amy's Challenge got the better of her in the Dixie Belle. While Amy's Challenge was sort of on the Kentucky Oaks trail briefly in those 2 route races, Steve Asmussen kept Mia Mischief sprinting, and it certainly was the right move last time out at odds on.
Yeah, visually, I thought she was awesome. We're going to take a look at that stretch right now. This is a stakes race down at Oaklawn, going 6 furlongs. I have to be honest with you, this to me was visually everything you could possibly ask for. A horse that generally is forwardly placed. Now she can sit a little bit, and she blows the doors off this field. I don't know if she's going to be the favorite in here or she'll be vying for favoritism, but I like that she's drawn outside the speed. I think she can take advantage. That versatility is very, very important. I think she's got a big, big chance in here.
She was supposed to beat that field that way, and she did not disappoint. She was in hand coming down to the wire. I agree with you. Nice to see a little bit of a different tactic last time out with my top selection in this race, Mia Mischief. She can lead, she can sit. It'll be interesting to see what Amy's Challenge and Gary Stevens does from the inside. Ricardo Santana Jr. has options now with Mia Mischief, and she'll be my top selection in the 8 Bell Stakes. JK's play of the day, Jonathan Kinchin has a pick 5 at Churchill Downs on Friday, and then you won't want to miss Mike Welsh's exclusive Kentucky Derby and Oaks Clocker report from May the 2nd. Let's go to those segments right now.
Hey everybody, welcome to JK's Play of the Day. It's Derby week, the most exciting week in racing. We're going to start off this week's activities with a pick 5 on Kentucky Oaks Day. We'll be back tomorrow with the Superfecta and the Kentucky Derby. But let's get started. Starting in race 7, this pick 5 sequence will end with the Kentucky Oaks. It's going to start with the Churchill Downs Turf Sprint. One of my favorite races, the 5 furlong Turf Sprint. Love to find the speed of the speed in here. I'm going to use 2 horses as A horses here. I'm going to use the 5 Leighton Revenge, shown a ton of speed going 5 furlongs before, shown a ton of speed going 5.5, was really fast last time. Got a little bit tired on the soft going, but there's not a ton of speed in here, and I think that he could get loose here at what is a big price. He'll at least give you a thrill as they turn for home. I'm also going to use Vision Perfect, who I think if it wasn't for Leighton Revenge's kind of quick pace situation, I might single in this spot. Vision Perfect is running huge numbers. If you look at Timeform US, if you look at buyers running fast figures, that last race with Buchero and with Pay Any Price was a really strong race. I think that this horse is going to be extremely tough going 5 furlongs. Jason Service really excels with these types in turf sprint races. And my B horses, I'm going to use the 1 horse, Wesley Ward, in a turf sprint. What more do I need to say there? Big price, down on the inside, should save ground. If he's good enough and gets the right setup, could be tough in here. Buchero, who also ran well last time at Keeneland. I just favored Leighton Revenge's performance based off of the really fast early fractions. And then Will Call, who might not have liked the soft going last time, could run well in this spot, could be soft again. If it is soft, take the liberty to get rid of that horse on your plays. Going on to race 8, the Ali Shiva. As much as I want to try to beat Always Dreaming, it feels like Always Dreaming is going to have an unbelievable setup in here with an easy pace scenario. I'm going to use him as an A horse. I'm also going to use the 4 Backyard Heaven off of that big effort for Chad Brown. Hopefully that horse is fit off of the layoff, but those 3 races in the lifetime of Backyard Heaven suggest that he could be dangerous in this spot. And then Awesome Slew if he happens to run in here. Keep an eye out for the scratches. He's cross-entered to run in the Churchill Downs Sprint on Saturday. We'll see where he ends up going. I can't design the race where he can get it done. He should take money. You could get a little bit of equity by trying to beat him in this spot. Going on to race 9, the oddly placed allowance race in the middle of all of these graded stakes. I'm going to just spread here, hope that I can stay alive. I'm going to use Electric Forest. I'm going to use Upset Brewing, Mahal Bay, Divine Mischief, and Enrage. Obviously, Electric Forest might be one you want to press a little bit harder. Sometimes I like to open up 2 ticket maker windows and use kind of a double A play. Electric Forest is one of those I might want to press up a little bit more because I think he's extremely dangerous in this spot for Chad Brown. Excuse me, she's extremely dangerous in this spot for Chad Brown. But there's other horses in here that offer a little bit of value. Going on to race 10, I see 2 horses winning this race. Daddy Is a Legend or Rushing Fall. keep an eye out for Rushing Fall. Cross entered on Saturday. I believe she'll go in this spot. I think they were looking for possibly a better post. Didn't draw a better post against the boys. I think we'll see her run here. Daddy is a legend off of that layoff. Missed the break, was wide, couldn't have had a worse trip against Rushing Fall last time. I think she could be extremely tough. I feel like these two horses have this race locked up. Those are the only two that I'll use. I'm not going to fall for any tricky price horses. And then going on to the last race, the Kentucky Oaks, the 1 1/8 for 3-year-olds. Why everyone will be at the track on Friday. I'm going to use 2 horses as A horses, a speed horse and a closer. That's Monomoy Girl as the speed horse, and Midnight Bisou as the closer. Those 2 are the best in my opinion. One of them will end up getting a good trip. They'll go too fast and it should set up for Midnight Bisou, or they could go too slow and set up for Monomoy Girl. Conversely, I'm going to use some price horses that resemble the same type of horses. I'm going to use Classy Act as the long-priced B horse that I think that could be forwardly placed, and I'm going to use Eskimo Kisses as the long-priced closer that was closing into that Monomoy Girl pace last time. Keelan, I think she could be tough at what is a big price. The 13 is no concern for me. Corey Lannery will get her right over to the rail and save ground, and hopefully she'll be able to run into something. Good luck. We'll see you tomorrow.
Mike Welch coming to you from a sunny and balmy Churchill Downs. And for those of you who have been following the workout videos the past week and a half, you could see a distinct change in wardrobe today. The California contingent that came in Monday obviously brought the warmer temperatures with them, as things certainly have warmed up here over the last couple of days. This morning, certainly, and things warmed up this morning out on the racetrack as well. Just about all the Derby and Oaks horses out there to train this morning. And again, all eyes on Justify and Bolt D'Oro, the 2 main players from California, and maybe the 2 main players in this year's Derby. And a distinct difference from the 2 of them from what I saw this morning. Justify, the #1 star of the show, just a perfect morning for him. Visited the starting gate, turned in a 1.5 mile gallop, full of energy but reserved, well reserved, but looked like ready to explode at any moment. Was a little handful to pull up again, but I thought he looked terrific out there today. And for those looking to find a chink in the armor, trying to beat Justify, and I'm one of them, I got to admit. I'm not going to take the short price on the favorite, but hard to find one out there today. Bolt D'Oro followed a similar regime a couple of minutes later, went to the gate first and then galloped about 1.5 miles. But he really took a long while, I thought, to warm up into a smooth-looking stride. He actually bobbled a little bit, changing leads, coming by the wire the second time. Though I don't have a frame of reference. I haven't seen him gallop before. From what my colleague Jay Pribman says, he usually goes to the training track at Santa Anita to warm up 1 mile before he comes to the main track to gallop. So that just may be him. There are some horses that are just like that. We've talked about Audible here this week too. Not the smoothest goer in the morning, but certainly runs his eyeballs out in the afternoon. So we'll keep an eye on Bolt D'Oro. We'll see if he gets a little bit smoother on Thursday. The other Bob Baffert horse, Salamini, again gate and then gallop, but he didn't gallop as far as Justify. He only went about 1 mile, pulled up a little bit sooner than I had expected. He's also kind of a goofy horse in the morning, throws his head around, has his head up in the air, but again, Jay Pribman says that's normal for him too, so not going to catch your eye really when he goes in the morning, but if that's what they do, that's what they do, and you just take it for what they're worth. Also, instilled regard, got to do a little more today, and he too, like Bolt D'Oro, I thought took a little bit longer to warm up out of the way he was going earlier in the gallop. The Todd Pletcher contingent, Vino Rosso, was the first one out, and we've talked about his high energy level here of late. He was a lot more subdued this morning, and trainer Todd Pletcher, I heard later, kind of thought the weather was part of that, the warmer weather responsible for a lot of the horses here not being quite as on their toes as they were in the cooler, windier temperatures earlier in the week. Noble Indy, I noticed this morning, galloped in blinkers for the first time today. The only other time I'd seen him in blinkers this week was when he worked on Friday. But again, an explanation for that as well. Todd was taking him to the starting gate, and he wanted to school him in the blinkers he will be wearing when he runs here on Saturday. Number 2 star this morning for me was Hofberg. Another great morning for Hofberg. He was actually shadowed for part of his gallop by Flame Away, both of them going at a 2-minute clip. Flame Away actually, and you might see Flame Away actually in behind me here schooling right now. Flame Away eased to the inside as they passed the wire and actually went past Hofberg. But again, I can't say enough about how good Hofberg has looked here this week, and his stock keeps rising and rising. I think his price is going to go down and down as we keep talking about how well he's done, and people get to watch him during the morning sessions here, the workout sessions televised on twinspires.com. Among the others today, my boy Jack did very little. Got a little warm again today, but just jogged a mile and went off kind of quickly. Combatant, he looked fine. So that's about Ferenc Fire. I want to mention Ferenc Fire because he got very ranked yesterday, his first day on the track. This morning, he was a lot better, a lot more relaxed. Good magic as well. Broke off this morning in front of the grandstand like he was going to have another real high energy level session, 2-minute licking it like he did yesterday, but he settled into a much more relaxed ride going down the backside. Again, an easier day for Good Magic, but he still looks terrific as far as I'm concerned. And Enticed, as usual, the last one out again, about 9:15. Looks fine. Routine gallop, about 1.5 miles. He too visited the starting gate for a schooling session today. Mendelssohn walked under tack in the shed row at the quarantine barn. He's scheduled to come out tomorrow. We're going to get our first look, everybody anticipating the first look at Mendelssohn on the racetrack. Among the fillies today, I thought Monomoy Girl had a great day. She looked terrific. All the Brad Cox fillies, he's got 3 in the race, train at that real high energy level, much the same we mentioned as Chad Brown's horses do on a regular basis in New York. It seems to work, and I thought Monomoy Girl, she still got that post 14 to overcome, but she was looking fine today. And Midnight Bisou, she was on the track actually at 7:30 today to school in the paddock, then go out and gallop, and she's scheduled to do the same thing tomorrow. And I'm hearing she's going to have about a 1/4 mile, maybe 3/8 blowout, as she does prior to most of her races, and we'll be on hand to keep a good track and good eye on that. Well, it's close now. We're almost there. Oaks Day, Derby Day, the weather. We talked about the weather at the start of the video. We're going to talk about it now because there is some weather in the forecast. They're calling for rain here Friday, Oaks Day, and into Saturday morning. The racetrack here dries out pretty quickly, so if that rain subsides on Saturday, the racetrack should be fine by Derby time. Might be a little problematic for the Oaks, but we'll keep an eye on that, as we'll keep an eye on everything else going on here with the Derby Clocker Report and everything else at DRF.com and DRF Live, the best coverage of Kentucky Derby 2018.
Welcome back to Out of the Gate. Normally this would be our best bet segment, but on this special edition, the special Kentucky Oaks edition of Out of the Gate, we want to cover another graded stakes race on the undercard. Let's throw up the field for the Ali Sheba, a grade 2 worth $400,000 featuring last year's Kentucky Derby winner, the number 3 Always Dreaming. For expanded stakes previews of all the graded races at Churchill on Friday and Saturday, head on over to video.drf.com or the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel. We cover every horse and every race in great depth, including the Oaks and the Derby. Mike, what about Always Dreaming? We saw him win the Derby on a wet track, and then it just went south from there.
Yeah, it didn't look so good after the Derby for this horse. You know what they say, pace makes the race. I guess Always Dreaming couldn't have found a better spot to make the pace in this race, a field full of deep closers. He's supposed to go right to the front in this race. We'll look at his race off the layoff down at Gulfstream Park, where I think if nothing else, you expected a little bit more than this. Chasing Conquest Big E the entire way around the track. I don't know about you two guys. I watched the full replay. Never saw any point in the race where it felt like Always Dreaming was going to win here. He survives for second. You're at the point now where you're talking about a horse who saved the Kentucky Derby, can run a buyer in the low to mid 90s. It makes him one of the slowest horses in this race, but maybe the pace will make all the difference.
But he is as loose as he wants to be, at least on paper, unless, Matt, unless the up-and-coming Backyard Heaven decides to go on the chase. Now, if he is the one chasing Always Dreaming, does that help Backyard Heaven, or does it hurt him?
Well, I suppose it's kind of a darn if you do, darned if you position, but I don't think they have a choice. I think you've got to be the one to Always Dreaming, and you can pull some sort of a trip like the one we saw most recently. This was in an allowance race at Aqueduct, going one turn most recently. Okay, Mr. Buff, we're not talking about that caliber. He's going to be facing much better runners on Friday afternoon, but he digs in and he's game. He goes and puts that horse away. The 108 buy coming back, Form US rating are all high. He's last out buyer in the field, and he's got Chad in his. If this horse can successfully do a couple things for the first time, he's got to go to 2 turns. He's got to face better horses. But if he can go and collar Always Dream, I don't have any faith in Always Dreaming. I think this horse might be an newcomer.
Mike, you have a real hard hitter in here, and that's the number 8, Awesome Slew, who's also cross-entered in the sprint race on Saturday, but appears that Mark Casse would rather run in this spot. Do you think this horse is a true 2-turn runner?
No, I really don't. I actually feel like he's probably more of a 1-turn 7 or 8 furlong horse, but they're going to go in this spot for him, and I'm just going to hope that it works out, if only because I can't talk myself into Always Dreaming. I don't really want any of the deep closers in this race, and I'm not necessarily sold on Backyard Heaven at a short price, so you know, I'll go with Awesome Slew. He's a quality horse. He does nothing but run really good races. Most recently, we saw him at Aqueduct in the Grade 1 Carter. I thought he ran fine in this race. He's going to take a mule kick here in the stretch from Army Mule for a Pletcher. 114 buyer for this horse. Awesome Slew has no chance to catch, but it's another good performance for him. I'm going to hope he gets a trip in this race, and maybe he's found the right field.
And it was his first start off the layoff after the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile, a 2-turn race in which for most of the race he was down on the deeper inside footing. He just happened to catch a freak on Carter Day in Army Mule. I agree with Matt. I made Backyard Heaven an out-of-the-gate horse watch after his second lifetime start, where he was just so visually impressive, and then he came back with that fast race against Mr. Buff. I guess Chad could have run him in the Westchester, but he's got a horse named Cloud Computing entered there on Saturday, the local prep for the Met Mile, so he'll try Always Dreaming, and he's going to have to run him down. But I think of the stalkers and closers, he has more tactical speeds than the Awesome Slews or the Good Samaritans or some of the other horses in this race, and I know he has more upside than those horses. So I'll agree with Matt again, and I'll go with Backyard Heaven to upset Always Dreaming in the Ali Sheba. You're going to want to stay tuned to DRF TV all Kentucky Oaks and Derby week long, because tomorrow we'll have our Kentucky Derby edition of Out of the Gate, expanded coverage, lots of different contributors and opinions. You're not going to want to miss it, so best of luck when your horses break Friday in the Kentucky Oaks. Out of the Gate.